Alright, as we go on and add more and more lights to the scene, notice I didn't explain too much about the point light other than the fact that it's now a backlight. And I didn't go through the special effects on the spotlight yet. So these are all going to be covered in another video later on. But for right now, I want to end up setting this 3-point lighting system up because you have to kind of know this first and how to use it. And then you can go about, making special effects happen. Because special effects probably would happen on one light, not 3. And which light is that? Is it the key light, this one, or the other fill light? Okay, now let's go to fill light. This is a directional light, which is going to act as my fill light. It's a little easier to set up because it can be anywhere in your scene. And wherever the arrow points is where the actual light is going to take place. What I like about this light for setting up as fill, it's just easier to kind of visualize. Here, I want to turn it down though to something like 0.25. So the only thing this does is basically takes the shadow region and makes it not black. So if I turn this, you can see the shadows turn black, and if I turn it just enough, the shadows turn gray. And that's how it should be. What I want to do is take off the emit specular, however, because the fill light should be in your scene, but it shouldn't cast a specular highlight on anything. Let's do a little render over here, and it looks like it's been updated. So, as you can see, no specular highlight, specular highlight. So, the fill light is just, think of it as the light that's bouncing around in the room, and we're just falsifying that light. Now what's really cool about the fill light is where you can start introducing color if you wanted to. If you wanted a little bit of blue in the scene, you could do that. And I wouldn't choose blue. Like this is a huge change, stark blue. But if you went in here and just toned that down just a little bit, that's where things start to become interesting within your scene. Because now you can see this blue and it's starting to creep up on the scene. With a fill light, another thing that you might not want is it to affect the background. Okay, so again, that is under light linking. Okay, another thing is I'm in IPR. So, my IPR being updated like this is making it so this doesn't work quite well. So I'm going to pause that. And let's go into the scene now. And I'm going to go paging through here and looking for lights. All right, let me relaunch this window here. Weird. Light centric. There we go. Okay. Yeah, and it had a lot to do with my IPR running. So right now I want the directional light, and I do not want it to have any influence over PQ. And you can see how that looks inside the scene. Nice. Alright, so now we have the 3 points lit. We can get a better render. I mean, this is nice, but wouldn't it be nice to get a really nice render? What we can do is add another thing called final render or final gather into the mix. Final gather is going to change a lot within the scene, so we have to kind of know how it works. And what final gather does is sharpen all the aspects of the scene up, because it calculates for light bouncing around. To do this, you go into the render settings and go into features, and then turn on file gathering. That turns on just all the other little settings that is needed within the scene. So that went into indirect lighting and put a check mark here. It went throughout and made all that stuff happen. Now let's see what happens all over, because when I go to render, it's going to be very bright compared to what it was before. See how these little nodes are jumping around. See how the outside edge are really ratty at first. This is because the final gathering is still calculating how light is handled within the scene, and it strengthens as we go. Render time right off the charts. Okay. Now, if you wanted even better a render, what would happen now is you would need to up the resolution, because right now this is probably 640 by 480. See, me being zoomed in looks horrible, but actually if I look at the zoom ratio here, the zoom ratio, if it's at 1, that means no zooming has occurred, and this is kind of how it looks. So what I might want to do is go in here and choose a different type of resolution. So I go into common and I say, well, this is good, but maybe I want 640 by 480, and I could use a full 1024, but if I wanted to keep it at 640 by 480, I could, and I could up the resolution. So there's a couple different things here. Resolution allows you to keep size but maintain quality, and this is real world size. So if I wanted the render to be physically big, I would use the image size, these numbers. If I wanted it to be pixel size, I would up these numbers. It's like having dots on a piece of paper. The more dots on a piece of paper equals more detail. It's the same size paper, you're just adding more dots. Now if you were to up this, it would be a bigger piece of paper with the same amount of dots, but you now have a bigger piece of paper to put more dots on. Does that sound stupid? Yeah, well, that's how it kind of works. If you look at resolution, it's how many dots there are on a piece of paper compared to how big the piece of paper is. So if I was to open this scene up in Photoshop, you would see that it's just physically the same size but more resolution.